Hello and welcome to Insight Live, the IT experts take. Today's show is on getting real value from AI in retail with Radius AI and Lenovo. And we've got a couple of guests from Lenovo and Radius on the call with us today. So first off, let me introduce Juan Orlandini, our CTO and distinguished engineer from Insight. You recognize him from other shows. Welcome, Juan.
Hey, Jason. Thank you for having me again.
My pleasure. And we've got with us the co-founder and CEO of Radius AI, Akut Benji. Welcome, Akut.
Thank you, Jason.
And we have Robert Daigle, who's the global head of AI from Lenovo. So welcome to you as well, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason.
So incredible amount of brain power. And then I'm your host, Jason Rader. Glad to be here as well. Why don't we start off, because I'd love for, to talk about, the AI aspect of Lenovo and to talk about what Radius does. Why don't we start with Akut, introduce, what Radius AI does and tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Radius AI is a startup in edge artificial intelligence. We're helping retailers solve their most complex problems using artificial intelligence on their existing security cameras in their retail brick and mortar stores.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit about AI at Lenovo, Robert.
Thanks so much, Jason. I'm so happy to be here and share a little bit about what we're seeing across the AI space. I lead our global AI business for Lenovo. A lot of people think of Lenovo as their favorite PC manufacturer with our great ThinkPad laptops and our Motorola phones. But we also have a great business in artificial intelligence, partnering with companies like Radius AI and bringing new AI solutions to market that are very practical and straightforward to implement. So we're excited to be here.
Love it. Thank you. And solutions in AI often involve multiple aspects, and that partnership that Insight has with both of you and with other partners out there allow us to bring those full solutions together. So we appreciate that partnership as well. So we did a survey, just like we always do, and thanks everybody out there for participating in that survey. The question this week was, what's the biggest obstacle stopping you from considering AI for retail? And those results were, the options were not seeing the ROI, trouble scaling, too costly, or lack of expertise in-house. And overwhelmingly, it was lack of expertise in-house, but number two, so that was 57%, 29% was not seeing the ROI, then 14 for trouble scaling, and then 0 for too costly. Juan had some interesting take on that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about why you think the too costly was 0, but the not seeing ROI and the lack of expertise were what they were?
My sense of it, Jason, is that it was a little bit of a redundant question, and it was actually answered by the ROI answer. So I think the organizations that have tried edge-based AI or accelerating some outcome in the edge with AI technologies have tried it. They found that they can do it, but they can't justify the cost of doing it because the ROI is not easy to figure out. So they're buying it, and they can't justify buying more of it. All right. It's not saying that you can't do it. And it's actually really, really interesting because we found that when we do a lot of these proof of value, or proof of concepts with our clients, we do have to hand in hand work with the business very closely to really demonstrate, like, hey, not only can we technically do it, but here's what it means for your business. And it's actually, if you don't approach it in that way, it's actually really, really hard to justify that ROI, because sometimes the business is needing something other than what the technologists are implementing in the first cut. And it just hasn't been approached in a cooperative manner. And when we do that, that's actually when we can demonstrate both the feasibility and the business value. And typically it actually leads to even more, because the business gets excited about it and says the art of possible is this, let's do these things. And that's actually why partnering with Radius and Lenovo is really exciting, because they go hand in hand in both of those sides when we go and do these engagements.
So what do you think the disconnect is? If they were thinking from a technology perspective and they weren't thinking about the business perspective, how do we kind of help get that across to them? Maybe that's something for Akut or Robert.
Sure, I can maybe chime in a little bit here because I kind of took that as a little bit different take on it.
Go ahead, please.
Whereas I
That's what we
believe
do here.
that people understand the value of AI. They understand that there will be a value to it, and that the investment costs, if we can justify, that we have extensive scope as far as what we can invest into it. But really proving the value becomes really critical. So I think it not so much as people are scared of the investment into AI, but
Right.
more so how do I take a business case back to my finance team internally? How do I get buy-in internally from our leadership that we can not only take this thing that we all know we have to do it, we all know we have to invest in it, but how to actually show that it's driving value to the business. And one of the things I encourage, people to be thinking about, or when we're working with our customers, is ROI is not always dollars. It could be net promoter score. It could be some of your CX figures. So it doesn't always drive back to a dollars and cents return on investment, but really going into a project, you need a clear KPI, and you need to be very clear with your solution providers that this is what we expect from you, and this is the KPI we're going to hold you to, and setting a clear milestone that if we succeed, if we hit this objective, then we move from POC to production, and having those clear metrics or key performance indicators for your AI projects is really, really critical.
Those are great points, Robert. And I just want to add to it that we need to realize that using AI in an organization is part of a larger digital transformation. And as the survey participants indicated, in-house expertise may not be sufficient to go all the way. So it is very important to create a complete ecosystem that can serve the customer, and not say, well, I have a hammer and show me a nail. We have to actually go in there with the entire hardware support, the IT support, the AI point tools, ISVs, and meet the customer demand all the way where they want to go, where the return is. And that is different for every customer. And what we have realized in scaling to 1,000 retail locations is in the end, accuracy and scalability also count. So if you don't have that, it is you do the pilot return, you show it, and oh, it's dandy, and then it's very expensive to scale. Or when we go out to many more stores, well, it doesn't work anymore. Those are some of the experiences that people have had in the past that is creating a barrier to entry. But emphasizing those features at the start and showing to the customer at the very start, here's how we validate the data, here's how we create accurate information for you, and here's how you use it in your organization to get the return. I think those are the steps necessary to achieve a return for the customer.
I'll add another thing that's a common pattern that we've seen as well, is that a lot of clients get into these edge AI use cases by trying to build all of it on their own. And that is a really big lift, because not only do you have to build out the infrastructure, the connectivity, the monitoring, the fleet management that's associated with that, but then you also have to select the right AI models, train the AI models, and do a whole bunch of things. And what I just described is a bunch of boxes with PhDs sitting next to each and every one of those boxes. And that's really hard to do and really freaking expensive, right? So what we look with when we partner with folks like Radius and Lenovo is how many of those PhDs are baked into the box, so that when we go and deploy these things, we don't have to have those PhDs on staff. They're part of the solution.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Juan, I was just going to add to that. Then where does that stop? If you're trying to build everything in house, or where do you stop? Are you going to try to build your own hardware too? I mean, that's we've seen customers try to go down that path, even building their own infrastructure, their own cameras even. And they find out that there's a lot more to it, not only on the design and manufacturing side, but also the implementation and manageability. And that becomes pretty complex.
100 is just as hard as day one, if not harder, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I use the Jurassic Park quote all the time. You were so worried about whether you could, you didn't think of whether you should. Uh, and because I think people do get spun up on the technology. It's typically led by somebody in the organization. They get really, the possibilities are really exciting. But I think you're going to get diminishing returns the farther outside of the core you get from an organizational perspective, unless you feel like you're launching another line of business. But if we're talking retail is the line of business typically, right? So I think that's a great point that I think I get into that same problem going to, walking through Home Depot. I see all these pieces and parts. Man, I could do just about anything if I get all these pieces and parts. And then every single time I get over my head, and then I get a mediocre product at best and a lot of hate from my wife for a little while till we get a professional.
Worst case scenario, you end up with a science project. And that's what we all try to stay out of, is science project land. And that's really what I think is, very impressive about the partnership between Insight, between Radius AI and Lenovo, is that these are proven building blocks. We can use those building blocks in different ways to meet the customer need, but they're founded in proven building blocks. We're staying outside of the science project land and really looking at how quickly can we get the value? What is the quickest path to value that we can prove? Because we know it's critical, especially in that first project, proving value very, very quickly, and then building upon it. So really that's what we believe is the right path forward for really starting up your AI projects and initiatives and seeking success with those.
The other thing that I think people get wrapped up around, particularly around AI, is this mistaken assumption that you have to do AI all of the time. And by do AI is, I mean that you have data scientists and data architects and data engineers that are doing all that testing and validation and model training and selection and all that other stuff. And that's really, really hard. And do you really want them to do that for a solved problem where somebody can let you use AI? And that's a big difference. And that's what Radius really brings to the table, is that they've done all of those components. And I'm doing a commercial for you. I'm sorry. All right.
We said no product pitches.
Yeah, no. But in general, this is a true statement for any of these things. Sometimes AI just needs to be a feature in something that you use, and look for the capability as a feature, not as a goal of you to do. And if you have the data scientists, the data architects, the data engineers, the BI people, the UX people, all those people that are working on these things, why don't you have them focus on something that is not a solved problem, that's off the shelf, right? There's still other hard problems to solve that use that AI as a feature, as a functionality. Don't spend your super smart people on something that we can fix with other tools that have already addressed the need.
Love it.
That's well said. I mean, AI is not the destination. It is a tool to achieve a better business outcome, and then at the end of the day. So we have to think about it like all the other tools in our toolbox. When we think about hybrid cloud, when we think about everything else that's happening in store transformation and IT and digital transformation, AI is another tool in our toolbox to improve core business, foundational business objectives.
So it's important to create a vision of where you want to end up with the customer, right? So the retailer has, we've met amazing people at retailers who have a great vision of where they want to end up. And we provide the tools for them to actually get there. The interesting thing is the e-tailers have had these tools for a long time. So they've had the ability to measure customer journey, to have very detailed metrics about what they care about, and then iteratively improve upon it and constantly get to a better state. And for the first time now, we are able to provide them these tools, and we have to help them on the journey too. So we can't stop at just insights. We need to also give them from insight to the solution, using AI to even implement the solution at the stores, and then measuring again and getting the human in the loop too, because in the end, it is the employees' insights that create the hypotheses that we verify, right? And then we actually implement it. They see which works, which doesn't work, and make the cycle much faster and less expensive for them. And then once that methodology fits in, retailers find that they can apply it to many different things. Typically, there's one starting point. Let's say sales says we want to achieve higher conversion from lot to store. So that's the focus. And then once you prove it, everybody says, well, I like that. I want to use it in operations efficiency. I want to use it in improving security. So you can apply the same formula, the KPI, as Robert mentioned, and actually use that to get to where they want and keep them excited and involved and keep on increasing the return.
Love it. Can somebody go through like a use case or maybe a couple of use cases of like what we do, what kind of things we can actually go in and solve? We kind of talked about all the tools and the concepts. Give me some stuff here.
So I'll start with one, and then I'm sure that both of them will, both of our guest speakers will dive in with their own examples. One retailer that we've been working with, it's primarily in the south of the United States. What they wanted to have is a couple of things come out of the cameras that they already had in their environment. One is better employee and client safety by monitoring for threat actors and those kinds of things, all right? And that does require some magic AI kind of vision kind of things to happen, right? But they wanted to go beyond that. It's like, hey, I've put an IP address on everything in my store, right? So they had an IP sensor on the soda fountains, on the refrigerators, on you name it. So they have all this instrumentation, and they want to see what can I do with a holistic approach to this, with both computer vision as well as all of these data points that I'm getting, to get a better overall efficiency on how my retail store is laid out, how all of those workflows happen, both in the stocking, unstocking, the client experience, and all those things. And we've been working with them. It's a journey, right, of taking them through the steps necessary. All right, let's fix the first problem. Let's fix the second one. And then along the way, discover other things that are possible. Like, oh, could we give our clients a better checkout experience by using these same cameras with computer vision? So you don't have to actually go to the register and scan everything. The system just already knows, right? And going through those things, and all of these things, we're not done with all of that, but that is one of those things where we started with just one use case, and the foundational elements were there, and we were just expanding and expanding, and now it's becoming a really pretty cool thing all around, right?
And I love what you said, because you leverage infrastructure they already had in place, data points that they already had, and I think that's a definite key, is that you can get to a really quick, ROI. You can show that they're getting ROI at that point.
I think we lost one of our speakers.
Yeah,
well, as you could tell, he is
I'll try not to disappear. I'm sure Robert will come back. So I'm gonna just take one very specific use case and just walk us through it. So food service at convenience stores. So this is something that's been growing, which means that the retailers may not be totally may not have optimized these processes, right? But they want to learn fast. It's a high growth area, it's high margin, and customers demand it. So basically, they want to get this perfected. So when we looked at this, yes, there are cameras that are actually looking at various food items. That's commissary, that's roller grill, that's pizza, different types of food items, that growing variety that convenience stores offer now. And some of the, if we look at it, it is how fast is it delivered when it's made to order? And if it's not made to order, how fresh is it? How long has this hot dog been staying on the grill? And how much of this food is wasted? And even more importantly, and those are all bottom line items, but then there is also lost opportunity. There's a section that's empty on the grill. What should have been cooked for rush hour lunch rush that wasn't cooked, right? So improve upon that, measure all these things. And as Juan said, it's very important to actually put it together with other systems that are in place. All these places already have kitchen management systems. The oven is smart, it knows when it's ready, and so on and so forth. So you bring all that data together and create a flow, and real-time and predictive alerts like hot dogs are about to run out is much more useful than they ran out 10 minutes ago. Or hot dogs have been staying on the grill for half an hour, so it's time to remove them, better than an hour and people have been already dissatisfied with the quality. But the return on it, we even created a calculator for it. There are so many ways it returns, right? First of all, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, because that plays into the picture. Employees actually feel much better if they're not stressed out and they have enough time to prepare things rather than rushing into, oh my God, this is out and what do we do type of scenario, and facing an unsatisfied customer. And then food waste is, nobody wants to actually waste food, but it turns out that they have more than 30% food waste estimated. So giving them the accurate figure, when is it wasted and how can you actually stop wasting a lot of that food, pointing out the things that can be improved, and gamifying actually the employee performance that actually achieves that end result are the things that get them to the end goal of having superior food service that competes in the marketplace, and also do it economically with a high profit margin.
Love it. I asked for the stuff. You gave the stuff for
sure.
Yeah,
just to add a few.
Please.
I'll just add a few things that we've been seeing in the industry. I mean, if you want to find out where AI can be most impactful, just look at what's happening in the industry right now. Organized retail crime is on the rise. It's about $100 billion issue for retailers globally. And that's a major issue. There was just recently on a major news network, Loss Prevention Research Council founder and leader was just on a major news network talking about this. It's a major industry issue. Major retail chains are shutting down stores because of it. So anything to do with loss, shrink, as Akut was saying, shrink can range from intentional theft, but it can also be food waste. And food waste is typically high value item, especially when you get into produce and things that have a shelf life. That there's a lot of, excuse my pun, but low hanging fruit there when it comes to those high value areas. And those are directly tied to return on investment, to a business case. When you get into things like in-store analytics, it's very valuable. And I'm not diminishing the value of doing, store analytics. And even Gartner has it as the number one thing on their pyramid of what retailers should be focused on, because it's connected to so many other objectives. But it's still once removed from a business case. So if you want a 360-degree view of your customers and know what they're doing omni-channel, online and the e-commerce sites versus in the store, you've got to do in-store analytics. This is basic building, blocking and tackling that you can build other business cases on, but still once removed from that. And these are the main areas that we see customers focus on. How do I reduce cost? How do I eliminate shrink? How do I improve our knowledge of what we can do, what the customers are doing in the store? We got all this rich information about what's happening in e-commerce. And how do you improve conversion rates on your e-commerce site? You look at the data and then you do A/B testing and you try to increase your conversion rates. And you sell advertising on your webpage. And you can do all that because you have, analytics. You need that same visibility to this much richer engagement you have with the customers when they're spending anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour and a half in your store. Very rich engagement. Take advantage of it. Yeah, captive audience. The last thing I'll say too is just one other industry trend we can't ignore is just the impact of what's happening in the employment market. with a staffing shortage right now. It's a major issue. And what you can do with arming new staff with a lot of these rich tools, like Akut was talking about gamification, that is a way to drive engagement with staff that do not have that knowledge base. They're not the knowledge worker that has spent years in your business understanding it, learning it, and improving it. So doing that knowledge transfer through analytics and AI tools is really, really impactful.
Love it. No, you guys have my brain, blowing up with the possibilities here, because, the things that once we start to get these data points, I mean, I'm thinking if I stop off at like a gas station and, let's say the hot dog's been on there 29 minutes and at 30 minutes they're thrown away, there could be literally a display on top of it that's like, this hot dog, now it's 50 cents instead of 99 cents. It's better to get half the money than zero. And I think, those are the kinds of things, or the gamification, you could literally, do something for the kids with an app on their phone that helps their parents shop and they'll want to be involved in the process. I mean, there's all kinds of really interesting things that we could do once we have the processing that can take place, the infrastructure in place, and the AI obviously that can make those connections and understand it. It's limitless.
And
Jason, it opens up. It opens up another avenue of revenue as well. My family, we just bought our first all-electric vehicle, and it's actually changing the way we look at the engagement at wherever we go charge our vehicle if we're taking an extended trip, right? So when you're in a gas station, you're there for 5 minutes, and you might or might not go inside the store. You might, if you're on a road trip, you tend to, but it's for just a few minutes while you refuel and take a bio break, and then you're done. With these electric vehicles, you might be in there for half an hour, right, or longer. And it's interesting that you might now be able to capture a lot more mind share and wallet share by engaging with these clients in a completely different modality, and maybe become a more attractive location for these different kinds of engagement. So planning for the future kind of a thing. So digital transformation in a way that's really, truly real. The car itself has become digital, right? Now, why don't you make your store better that way as well, right?
Love it. So we're probably at a place where we should start wrapping up. What I usually like to do at the end of these conversations, because now we got everybody's brains exploding with the possibilities, and usually we like to say, how do folks get started? And maybe have a closing round of those kinds of things. How about we go from Robert to Akut and then to Juan for the closing remarks?
Sure, absolutely. One of the things that we see is like I said, I can't reiterate it enough. Find that first project that is very straightforward and a key objective for your business. Different organizations are going to have different priorities. We have some customers that, the employee experience is really, really important. We have others that the customer experience is the number one thing. Others, they're getting hit with organized retail crime worse than other organizations. So it's really important. So finding that thing that's important to your organization. There is likely an AI solution out there, and likely one that meets those needs, as Juan was saying earlier, without you having to go build your own science project. And I think that's so important. But as you get that first one in market, and as you're starting to deploy it, you have to quickly shift your focus on how do I move from doing one thing really well, this one project, to expanding it. And I think that's where partnerships like we have here on the call are really critical, in that you've got every building block represented here to bring together an entire solution. And you want your solution providers working together, because otherwise you're going to end up with a bag of parts that may not work well together and may not function well. When you go from 1 to 2 store POC to rolling out at 1,000 stores and maybe 10,000 stores, that's where you start to see the fractures in a poorly designed architect and in a ecosystem that's not working well together. And I think that's what's really, really, powerful. Also, make sure you have the right stakeholders engaged. I was just reading a report recently of over 300 enterprise organizations actually responded to this. What are some of the biggest impacts to you not being successful with your AI initiatives? And about half of it comes back to IT related involvement, where you have a disconnect between the line of business that's out there, defining the business case and getting executive engagement, and the IT organization that is helping them execute on it. And so much of this, when we look across our deployments, anywhere from 30 to 50% of the cost may be infrastructure, maybe the hardware for doing an AI deployment. So you want that to be as efficient as possible. You want it to be running efficiently, and you want to get your IT staff engaged early on, because they're going to help guide some of these critical decisions. They're going to help you save enough that it may be the difference maker. It may be the difference maker in the business case being positive or negative. Maybe the work that you do with your IT department internally. So I can't stress it enough. You got to get the right stakeholders. You get the right people on bus at the beginning, instead of just trying to throw things over the fence and thinking that it's going to scale from 1 store pilot, 3 store pilot to 1,000 stores. And finally, I would say, look for a way to quickly shift that thinking from how you go from the first project, the first initiative, to how do we make AI a core foundation? Okay, we've got our leadership's attention, we've got the business cases successful. How do we make it a core foundation to everything that we do? There's a great leader out there that once said we have to shift from being, internet first or mobile first to being AI first. And I think that's the transition or the chasm many organizations within the retail industry are looking at right now.
Love it. Thank you.
All excellent points. I'll just come up with a brief list of what you should ask your AI vendor team to actually, to see whether they serve you. There's a little bit of, do we have the right expertise? Are we the right place for AI? Those are, I would turn it around and say, is this team able to solve my issues? I have limited bandwidth at my stores, and most likely there will be limited bandwidth at the stores. It's a travel center. It's 100 miles from the nearest city. Be realistic about what the set of constraints are, and ask the vendor, how are you going to solve my problems? How are you going to scale? How do you validate the accuracy across my stores? How do you not only deploy it, but maintain it? And make sure that the service level requirements are met. What are the service level uptime? What is uptime? What do you guarantee? Those are things that are to be asked upfront. And if the team does not have an answer to that, maybe they're not the right team to actually implement this solution. And so I think it's good to actually realize that this is a very compelling area, but it has its own issues and it has its own challenges. And confronting these challenges up front and working with an experienced team who have solved them before is, I think, one of the keys to success.
That's also very well said. And my response to all of this would be to actually challenge the folks that answered our survey and take a fresh look at that opinion or that response that you had based on what we've been discussing today. And take a look, if you were on the hard to justify ROI, how much of that ROI justification was based on using something that you built versus something that could be prepackaged or pre-assembled for you? How much of that was based on you doing a lot of the heavy lifting versus having somebody come and help you do that, either with an off-the-shelf thing or managed service or one of those kinds of things. And if that answer changes for you, then start engaging there and use what Robert and I had brought to the table as a low-hanging fruit to go start justifying this to the business. And if you're in the unsure camp, I think you now have better tools at your disposal to start thinking about, hey, where can I start plugging these things in and use AI? Don't do AI unless you have to, right? Figure out how to use this AI technology and the amazing hardware platforms that are available out there to do that at your edge at a very reasonably, very reasonable and cost-effective manner. So hopefully that helps everybody.
Yeah, totally. No, I thought all of those comments were fantastic. I mean, I love the keep IT involved aspect. I mean, that's really, I think, key to success, long-term success. Folks are really good at acquiring stuff. They're not necessarily good at operating and maintaining stuff. And that's where your IT folks are, and the folks that understand your infrastructure and plan that capacity are really, really key.
And don't forget security, Jason, of all people, right?
Absolutely. And Akut, I love what you said about making sure, hey, can you deliver this for me? I think that's, you are the person in control of your own destiny in this particular case, because you're not beholden to your own people. You're not beholden to a specific vendor. You can get a full solution that puts together and gets you. I love it when we talk about things that empower folks to get in the game when they feel like they were way behind in the game. This, infrastructure, AI, all of those things can be leveraged and get you in this game way quicker, leveraging current infrastructure or, adding to that infrastructure as well. I love the camera example that Juan gave earlier. Leveraging the cameras we've got, we can do some good stuff. And then we can plan the roadmap, leveraging AI as we continue to go and making things better and better. That's awesome. I love to empower folks with technology instead of them feeling like we waited too long, we didn't have 10 PhDs on staff, and now we're not in this game. That's not how this works.
Everyone else gets to immediately grasp that value of all the investments that maybe your competitors were out there making these huge investments and, teams to do large language models or to do computer vision, and you feel like you're behind. Now you have a application, full stack solution with application that takes all the value of those PhDs, of those architects, of the research that was built upon, of the open source tools and knowledge base that we've collectively brought together and packaged it up as an offering is really a beautiful thing to see, and something that allows, even smaller stores, smaller chains that feel like they don't have the investment to compete. Now this equalizes the playing field for them.
Love it. Fantastic way to end. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thanks, Radius and Lenovo, for being here, Robert and Akut. Thanks, Juan, as always, for being our CTO rockstar to show up and help us here. And I'm your host, Jason Rader. If you want to know more about what we do at Insight or any of our folks on the phone, please visit their websites, and you can visit us at solutions.insight.com. Thanks, and have a good day.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.